Welcome back to the channel. Everyone, we are standing at the absolute epicenter of a basketball earthquake. The 2025 to 2026 NBA season has officially concluded, and the shockwaves of what we just witnessed in the NBA Finals, combined with the incredibly high stakes of the impending offseason, have fundamentally altered the landscape of professional basketball. I want you to really process what just happened. The New York Knicks are your 2026 NBA champions. For the first time since 1973, for the first time since the days of Walt Clyde Frazier and Willis Reed, the Larry O'Brien Trophy is back in Madison Square Garden. They closed out the series in 5 games against the San Antonio Spurs, beating Victor Wembanyama and company 94-90 in a grueling, defensive, absolute masterclass of closeout Game 5. And at the center of it all, dropping 45 points when the lights were the absolute brightest, was Jalen Brunson, your undisputed Finals MVP. But this championship means so much more than just a parade down the canyon of heroes. It represents a complete paradigm shift in how NBA teams are built, how front offices calculate risk, and most importantly, how players approach free agency in the modern era. When we talk about Jalen Brunson changing free agency, we are not speaking in hyperbole. We are talking about a player who has redefined value. Think back to 2022. The Knicks signed Brunson to a 4-year, $104 million contract. At the time, the mainstream basketball media, the analysts, the talking heads, they all laughed. They called it a massive overpay. They said the Knicks were just being the Knicks, chasing a guy who had never made an all-star team, a guy who was seen as nothing more than a secondary piece, a sidekick playing the massive shadow of Luka Doncic in Dallas. People like Becky Hammon publicly stated that you could not win a championship with Jalen Brunson as your best player. The prevailing wisdom was that he was too small, not athletic enough, and ultimately not a true Tier 1 superstar. Fast forward to today, and those criticisms sound absolutely laughable. Jalen Brunson has proven everyone wrong, elevating a franchise that had been wandering in the basketball wilderness for half a century. And the narrative has violently swung in the complete opposite direction. Hall of Famers Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal went on national television just the other night and declared unequivocally that Jalen Brunson's move to New York is the greatest free agency signing in the history of the National Basketball Association. Shaq literally looked into the camera and apologized to Chuck, admitting he never knew Brunson was this transcendent. Now, you might be thinking, what about LeBron James taking his talents to South Beach to join the Miami Heat? What about Kevin Durant tipping the scales of the league and joining a 73-win Golden State Warriors team? What about Shaquille O'Neal himself leaving Orlando for the bright lights of the Los Angeles Lakers in 1996? Those were all monumental moves. Yes. But they were superstars moving to establish cultures or forming incredible super teams. They were established kings claiming new thrones. Jalen Brunson went to a franchise that was a laughingstock. He went to a 37-win team that had no clear direction, a team burdened by the heaviest media pressure cooker in the world. He was not viewed as a franchise savior. He was viewed as a solid point guard. New York gambled on the intangibles, the leadership, the unquantifiable grit, and the potential for a good player to become great. And he rewarded them not just with his play, but with unprecedented financial sacrifice. By signing a massive extension that left over $110 million on the table, Brunson allowed the Knicks to dodge the catastrophic penalties of the NBA's dreaded second apron. He looked at the new collective bargaining agreement. He saw the restrictive team building rules that punish expensive rosters, and he essentially subsidized the Knicks championship window. He prioritized winning over maxing out his earning potential in a way we have never seen a prime superstar do in this financial climate. By doing so, Jalen Brunson has single-handedly changed free agency. He has put immense pressure on every other superstar in the league. Now, when a star player demands a supermax contract that cripples his team's ability to sign role players, the front office, the media, and the fans will point to New York and say, "Look at what Jalen Brunson did. Look at the sacrifice he made for a ring." He has completely rewritten the blueprint. But while the Knicks are bathing in champagne and validating their meticulous culture-first rebuild, the situation on the opposite coast is dire. The dichotomy between the champions in New York and the crisis in Los Angeles could not be more stark. Which brings us to the second massive story dominating the league right now, the Los Angeles Lakers and their absolute, undeniable need to have the courage to trade teams, the courage to completely blow up what is not working, to strip away the vanity, and to make the incredibly painful, uncomfortable decisions required to actually compete in the ruthless Western Conference. Let's look at the brutal reality of the Lakers' situation. They went all in. They made the blockbuster move. They acquired Luka Doncic to be their new centerpiece, an acquisition that was supposed to guarantee them a trip to the NBA Finals. You pair Luka Doncic with the Lakers brand, and you expect immediate, undeniable dominance. But what happened? They were humiliated. They were unceremoniously swept in the second round of the playoffs by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Swept? The Thunder ran them off the floor, exposing every single flaw, every structural weakness, and every lack of defensive identity the Lakers possessed. It was a harsh, unforgiving reality check for the Lakers brass. Having a generational talent like Luka Doncic is simply not enough if the roster surrounding him is unbalanced, unathletic, and defensively porous. The Lakers are now staring down the barrel of an incredibly complex offseason, and the clock is ticking loudly. The free agency negotiating window is opening, and the trade market is officially unlocked. All 30 teams are eligible to make moves, and the Lakers are squarely under the microscope. This is where the concept of the courage to trade comes into play. It is easy to make safe moves. It is easy to sign mid-level exception guys and hope for internal development. But the Lakers do not have the luxury of patience. The Western Conference is an absolute bloodbath. The Thunder are young, hungry, and loaded with talent. The Spurs have just been to the finals with Victor Wembanyama, who is only going to get better. The Mavericks, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, they are all lurking. To survive, the Lakers front office needs the courage to fundamentally alter their DNA. They have a glaring, fatal flaw that was exploited relentlessly by Oklahoma City. They do not have a starting caliber, defensive anchor at the center position. The experiment with DeAndre Ayton has been an abysmal failure. It just has not worked out. Ayton could not match the intensity, the physicality, or the defensive awareness required to protect the rim in the playoffs. And when your defense collapses in the paint, your entire system crumbles. This brings us to the most fascinating name heavily linked to the Lakers right now, Walker Kessler of the Utah Jazz. Brian Windhorst recently laid out the exact scenario, and it perfectly encapsulates the dilemma the Lakers face. Walker Kessler is exactly what the Lakers need. He is a 7'2" defensive anchor, a premier shot blocker who can change the geometry of the court on the defensive end. He provides the exact dimension of rim protection and toughness that Los Angeles so desperately lacked against the Thunder. But acquiring him requires immense courage and a willingness to engage in high-stakes brinkmanship. Kessler is a restricted free agent. The Utah Jazz have reportedly offered him an extension in the ballpark of $28 million. If the Lakers want him, they cannot just sit back and hope he falls into their lap. They have to present an offer sheet that blows Utah's offer out of the water, or they have to orchestrate a complex sign and trade deal before the market dries up. If they hesitate, if they wait to see what happens by July 8th, they will be left empty-handed. They have to be aggressive. They have to look at their assets, look at the failed experiments on their roster, and have the courage to package them, trade them away, and commit massive financial resources to a defensive specialist, because that is what the team needs to survive. And that is just the center position. The courage to trade also extends how they handle their own homegrown talent, specifically Austin Reeves. Reeves is the fan favorite, a brilliant success story of the Lakers scouting department, and a player who genuinely wants to remain in Los Angeles. The mutual admiration is there. But the NBA is a business, and the Lakers cannot afford to operate on sentimentality. There are intense rumblings that teams with cap space, teams like the Brooklyn Nets, the Detroit Pistons, or the Atlanta Hawks, might be preparing to throw a massive offer sheet at Austin Reeves. An offer so large that it would severely test the Lakers' willingness to match under the harsh penalties of the new CBA. The Lakers need the courage to accurately evaluate Reeves' true market value. They cannot insult him with a lowball offer, assuming he will take a hometown discount just to wear the purple and gold. Jalen Brunson took a discount to keep a championship team together. You cannot ask a player to take a discount for a team that just got swept in the second round. If a team like Brooklyn drops a massive bag on Reeves, the Lakers front office must have the courage to either match it and deal with the financial consequences, or have the courage to let him walk and pivot immediately to a backup plan. They cannot be paralyzed by fear of public backlash. This brings us into the deep dive analysis of what the Lakers must actually execute in the coming weeks. The concept of having the courage to trade teams is about fighting the sunk cost fallacy. General Manager Rob Pelinka and the ownership group must look at the roster construction around Luka Doncic with completely objective, ruthless eyes. When you trade for a player of Luka's magnitude, you have effectively mortgaged your future for the present. There is no waiting for draft picks to develop. There is no 3-year plan. The plan is right now. Luka requires specific types of players around him to maximize his unprecedented offensive engine. He needs elite shooters who can knock down the open looks he generates, and he needs versatile, switchable defenders who can cover for him on the other end of the floor. And most crucially, as we discussed, he needs a lob threat and rim protector like Walker Kessler to anchor the defense. Right now, the Lakers roster is a mismatched puzzle. It is a collection of names that do not fit a cohesive identity. To fix this, they need to explore the trade market with a level of aggression we haven't seen since they dismantled their young core for Anthony Davis years ago. They have to be willing to call up the Dallas Mavericks, who are reportedly low on P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, and see if there's a deal to be made. Ironically, reuniting Luka with Gafford and Washington could theoretically recreate some of the magic Dallas had in their previous playoff runs. But are the Lakers willing to take on those contracts? Are they worried about P.J. Washington's three-point shooting consistency? These are the micro decisions that will dictate the macro success of the franchise. Furthermore, the Lakers need to look at the peripheral moves. Reports suggest they are tied to names like Mitchell Robinson and Robert Williams III. These are highly injury-prone centers, but when healthy, they provide elite rim protection. Does Los Angeles have the courage to gamble on the medical charts of these players? Do they trade reliable, healthy rotation players for the high-risk, high-reward potential of a Robert Williams? That is the definition of trading with courage. It is taking calculated risks because standing pat is a guaranteed failure. The Oklahoma City Thunder proved that standing pat with his current Lakers roster results in a 4-game sweep. We also have to analyze this from the perspective of the new collective bargaining agreement, because the CBA is the invisible hand guiding every single trade discussion in the league today. The second apron rules have fundamentally terrified front offices. If your payroll exceeds the second apron, you are stripped of your mid-level exception. You cannot aggregate salaries in trades. Your future first-round draft picks become frozen and eventually move to the end of the first round. It is a punitive, restrictive environment designed specifically to prevent teams from simply buying championships by hoarding max contracts. This is why Jalen Brunson's decision in New York is so profoundly impactful and why it puts the Lakers in such a bind. The Knicks have financial flexibility because their best player voluntarily suppresses cap hit. The Lakers do not have that luxury. If they want to keep Luka Doncic happy, field a competitive roster, match a potentially massive offer for Austin Reeves, and orchestrate a sign and trade for Walker Kessler, the math becomes incredibly unforgiving. They will be pushed right up against or over those apron thresholds. Therefore, every trade they make has to be surgically precise. They cannot afford to take back dead money. They cannot afford to trade for players who do not perfectly complement Luka. They have to find undervalued assets, distress properties around the league, and fit them into their system. It requires a front office that is proactive, not reactive. For too long, the Lakers have operated with a sense of exceptionalism. They have believed that the allure of Los Angeles, the sunshine, the legacy of Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant, would be enough to attract free agents and secure championships. But the league has evolved. Small market teams like Oklahoma City are building through elite scouting, hoarding draft capital, and developing organic chemistry. The San Antonio Spurs are leveraging the generational talent of Victor Wembanyama with smart, tactical team building. The New York Knicks have built a blue-collar, defensive juggernaut that perfectly reflects their coach, Tom Thibodeau, and their leader, Jalen Brunson. The Lakers' old model of just throwing stars together and hoping it works is dead. The sweep by the Thunder was a final nail in that coffin. So, What does a courageous trade look like for the Lakers right now? It looks like identifying the players on their roster who have perceived value around the league but do not contribute to winning basketball in Los Angeles, and moving them without hesitation. It means picking up the phone and engaging with teams like the Detroit Pistons or the Utah Jazz, teams that have cap space and are looking to accumulate assets. If the Lakers have to attach draft capital to offload bad contracts in order to clear the runway for a Walker Kessler sign and trade, they have to do it. They cannot hold on to future picks when the window to win with Luka Doncic is open right now. Luka is not going to wait around for a multi-year retooling process. If the Lakers fail to build a contender around him, the murmurs of discontent will begin, the media circus will escalate, and the pressure will become insurmountable. This brings us to a critical inflection point in the modern NBA. We are watching two completely different philosophies clash in real time. On one side, you have the New York Knicks, a team that exercised extreme patience, stockpiled assets, waited for the perfect moment to strike, and found a player in Jalen Brunson who aligned perfectly with their organizational ethos. They didn't trade the farm for an aging superstar. They identified an undervalued asset in Dallas, believed in his ceiling, and built a sustainable, financially responsible powerhouse around him. Brunson's unselfishness cemented that culture. He changed free agency by proving that legacy, winning, and organizational stability can sometimes outweigh squeezing every last penny out of the contract. He is now immortalized in New York sports history, drawing comparisons to Mark Messier and Joe Namath. He is the undisputed king of New York, and his contract is the gold standard for how to build a team under the new CBA. On the other side, you have the Los Angeles Lakers, a franchise steeped in glamour, addicted to the blockbuster move, and constantly chasing the next shiny object. They secured Luka Doncic, a move that should have been the ultimate checkmate. Yet, they find themselves desperate, scrambling to fix a broken roster, and facing a harsh reality check against younger, more cohesive teams. They are realizing that star power alone cannot mask defensive deficiencies and poor roster construction. They are the cautionary tales of the new NBA. As we look ahead to the opening of free agency, the entire basketball world is holding its breath. The decisions made in the next few weeks will echo for years to come. Will the Lakers find the courage to make the massive, uncomfortable trades necessary to salvage the Luka Doncic era? Will they be able to outmaneuver the Utah Jazz for Walker Kessler and finally secure a defensive identity? How will they navigate the treacherous waters of Austin Reeves' restricted free agency? Will they panic? Or will they execute a precise, ruthless offseason strategy? And simultaneously, how will the rest of the league react to the Jalen Brunson precedent? Will we see other stars follow his lead, prioritizing team building and flexibility over maximum individual profit? Or will Brunson remain a brilliant outlier in an increasingly greedy landscape? The NBA has never been more competitive. The financial rules have never been more complex, and the margin for error has never been thinner. The stage is set. The Knicks have shown the league the new blueprint for success. Now, it is up to the Los Angeles Lakers and every other contender in the association to adapt or perish. The off-season is here, and it is going to be absolute chaos. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this deep dive breakdown. If you enjoyed this analysis and want to stay completely up to date with all the trades, free agency signings, and the fallout of the NBA offseason, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a like on the video, and jump into the comments section below. I want to hear from you. Do you think the Lakers have the courage to make the massive trades needed to build a winner around Luka Doncic? Who should be their number one target? And do you agree with Shaq and Charles Barkley that Jalen Brunson is the greatest free agency signing in NBA history? Let's get the debate going in the comments. Until next time, keep your eyes on the trade ticker because the NBA never sleeps. Peace.